गिरिवरदारी यशोदनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यशोदनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यमुनतीरा वनचारि यमुनतीरा वनचारि राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी जय गोपीचन वल्लभा गिरिवरदारी जय गोपीचन वल्लभा गिरिवरदारी यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन यमुनतीरा वनचारि यमुनतीरा वनचारि जय माता माधवा कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा श्रील प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा श्रील प्रभुपादा एवं विष्णुपाद परमहंस परमजक्ष अष्टोत्तर सदस्य श्रीमती स्वांग शिक्षित शिल्प की जय इस्कॉन संस्थापक शिल्प की जय जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस परमजक्ष अष्टोत्तर सदस्य श्रीमद भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज प्रभुपाद की जय जय विष्णुपाद श्री किशोरदास स्वामी महाराज की जय जय विष्णुपाद सच्चिदानंद श्री भक्तिविनोद ठाकुर की जय जय विष्णुपाद वैष्णव साधु श्री जगन्नाथ दास स्वामी महाराज की जय जय श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट अविनाशी जी गोपाल भट्ट दास अविनाश गोस्वामी प्रभु की जय नमाचार्य श्री हरदास ठाकुर की जय प्रेम से श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री दादर शिवसादि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड की गोवर्धन की जय श्री श्री गौरांग बेंगलोरीश्वर भगवान की जय श्री मायंगो धाम की जय श्री धाम की जय गंगामय की जय यमुनामय की जय भक्ति देवी की जय तुलसी देवी की जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव के नाम संकीर्तन की जय, ग्रंथ श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, ISKCON वर्तमान गुरुवृंद की जय, समावेद भक्तवृंद की जय, गौरव प्रेमानंद हरि हरि. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, all glories to Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Apatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Hare Krishna, welcome you all to this Friday morning Srimad Bhagavatam class. Today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 31, Text 5 and Text 6. First we'll read Text 5. Matur Jagdan Panadyair Edadatur Asammate Shete Vin Mutrayor Garte Sajantur Jant Sambhave Matur Jagdan Panadyair Edadatur Asammate Shete Vin Mutrayor Garte Sajantur Jant Sambhave Matur Jagdan Panadyair Edadatur Asammate Shete Vin Mutrayor Garte Sajantur Jantu Sambhave. Translation Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Deriving its nutrition from the food and drink taken by the mother, the fetus grows and remains in that abominable residence of stools and urine, which is the breeding place of all kinds of worms. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. In the Markandeya Purana, it is said that in the intestine of the mother, the umbilical cord, which is known as Apyayani, joins the mother's abdomen of the child. And through this passage, the child within the womb accepts the mother's assimilated foodstuff. In this way, the child is fed by the mother's intestine within the womb and grows from day to day. The statement of the Markandeya Purana about the child's situation within the womb is exactly corroborated by modern medical science, and thus the authority of the Puranas cannot be disproved as is sometimes attempted by the Mayavada philosophers. Since the child depends completely on the assimilated footstep of the mother, during pregnancy, there are restrictions on the food taken by the mother. Too much salt, chili, onion, and similar food is forbidden for the pregnant mother because the child's body is too delicate and new for him to tolerate such pungent food. Restrictions and precautions to be taken by the pregnant mother, as enunciated in the Smriti scriptures of Vedic literature, are very useful. We can understand from the Vedic literature how much care is taken to beget a nice child in society. The Garbhadana ceremony before sexual intercourse was compulsory for persons in the higher grades of society, and it is very scientific. Other processes recommended in the Vedic literature during pregnancy are also very important. To take care of the child is a primary duty of the parents because if such care is taken, society will be filled with good population to maintain the peace and prosperity of the society, country, and human race. Text number 6. Krimibihi kshatas sarvangaha saukumaryad patikshanam murchamapnoti urukleshas tatrei kshuditair muhu. Translation Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Bitten again and again all over the body by the hungry worms in the abdomen itself, the child suffers terrible agony because of his tenderness. He thus becomes unconscious moment after moment because of the terrible condition. The miserable condition of the material existence is not only felt when we come out of the womb of the mother, but is also present within the womb. Miserable life begins from the moment the living entity begins to contact his material body. Unfortunately, we forget this experience and do not take the miseries of birth very seriously. In Bhagavad Gita, therefore, it is specifically mentioned that one should be very alert to understand the specific difficulties of birth and death. Just as during the formation of this body, we have to pass through so many difficulties within the womb of the mother, at the time of death, there are also many difficulties. As described in the previous chapter, one has to transmigrate from one body to another, and the transmigration into the bodies of dogs and hogs is especially miserable. But despite such miserable conditions due to the spell of Maya, we forget everything and become enamored by the present so-called happiness, which is described as actually no more than a counteraction to distress. Umagyantindrandashalake Chakshurmiltam Ena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopishtam Stapidam Ena Bhutale Swayam Rup Kadam Tadati Swa Padantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Vidavadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathantam Tam Sijivam Satvaitam Savdutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakanditamscha Ye Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastude Taptakanchana Gaurani Radhe Vrindavaneshwar Vishamanchite Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Panchakalpataru Yashak Vasnudevya Patitanam Pavnekva Vaishnavekva Namanama Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Dhagara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Muham Karoti Vachalam Bhagam Nangayati Kubada Muhammad Shri Gram Tirtha Paramanandam Shri Chaitanya Misha. Hare Krishna. So here in this sloka, the subject of the moments of the living entities, the condition of a fetus in the embryo of the mother is described. And here it is mentioned how they go through a very abominable condition when they are in the womb of the mother. So there is a description in the Markandeya Purana also. These Puranas, generally sometimes people think they are mythological or they are stories which are not true. But everything that is given in the Puranas is true. So there is a mention here as to how in Markandeya Purana it is mentioned that a child gets its food, the fetus gets its food from the mother through the umbilical cord, which connects the mother and it connects to the child. And whatever the mother eats, not as it is, not that it goes as it is into the fetus, but in a certain form, which I'm not able to describe, it gets into the child for the child's nourishment and it, as a food for the fetus. Now, descriptions are given as to how with every month the fetus grows to become a child in the womb. Now, one thing is that when there is an intake of any food in any form, whether it is solid or liquid, whatever it is, it has to come out also. And where such a things also exist like stool and urine. Now, there is no, I'm not too sure about how these things are excavated from the embryo, but then the Shastras mention as to how the stool and urine is there, and they become a breeding ground for worms. And where worms are there, the child automatically feels bitten, is bitten many times. But unfortunately, a child in the womb, in fact, it is said in the Shastras that the worst condition of a living entity in this material world is like a child in the womb itself, where he's bitten by so many worms. And sometimes what happens is that it is also generally mentioned in the Shastras how even otherwise in the normal times it is recommended in the scriptures that one should honor Mahaprasadam. So Mahaprasadam automatically means that not too much of a salt, not too much of a chili, not too much of oil, not very, very bitter, not very sour or salty preparations, even in the normal circumstances. And particularly when a woman is pregnant, these are all almost, these have to be observed much more strictly, because when a mother takes food which are salty or sour or oily, then the child also feels these things. We may not know, but the Shastras mention as to how the child feels these pains of taking these remnants. Now, doctors also why they advise avoiding these type of foods, because as per their science also, it is not healthy for the child. So that is why it is said that one should go through the Garbhadana samskara. There are many samskaras that At least there are 10 samskaras, of which Garbhadana samskara is one very important samskara for the upbringing of a child. So Garbhadana samskara is starts right from the time the seed is laid uh, in the semen and it enters into the womb of the woman. Uh, and then this is formation of the child takes place. And gradually, with every month, the development of the child takes place, which is what this subject covers in Srimad Bhagavatam. So it is mentioned that the worms within the mother's stomach bite the tender flesh of the child. You see, when the child comes out, also we see how tender the child is. So when the worms bite, the child feels that bite also. When we are bitten by a mosquito, immediately we get irritated. We imagine what could be the condition of the child, and the child is unable to express it. That is why it is said that even by medical science that one should be very, very careful during the pregnancy period. But the child is not able, is unable to help in that situation because he's not able to drive them away. But at the same time, the child continues to burn with pain. So it is like a hard case. The child cannot move, and he survives just by the arrangement of the Lord. So many times it is also mentioned as to how sinful uh, living entities. They sometimes do not even take birth and they repeatedly enter into a womb of the mother and then die within the womb also. This is the condition of sinful living entities. Of course, these chapters mention about it. So one has to be very careful in one's life because when one becomes sinful, the progeny also becomes sinful. So many times we see that abortions take place even within the womb of the mother. So these are all examples of how sinful entities enter and then they don't come out also and they die within the womb also. And then there's a mention as to how uh, when the child is in difficulty, now one might ask, how can a child pray when he cannot express? But the Lord is seated within the heart of every living entity and he facilitates every living entity to pray. And at that time, the Lord also facilitates these Peters to pray, and some of them are mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam only. One of which they say, "Oh Krishna, oh life and soul of the universe, please protect me. Other than you, to whom can a living entity submit his sorrows?" I mean, it is going through a sorrow, but then doesn't know whom to uh, seek shelter. But the Lord facilitates that Peter also. Then he says, "O Lord, one who binds someone can alone set him free. Therefore, why do you deceive me?" One who is dead by nature. That means the child is feeling helpless. And in this helpless situation, the Lord facilitates him to pray. Now, this is a situation that, I mean, the child is remaining in the womb for 9 months or 10 months, whatever it is. But this is what he goes through. And he's in a very, very pathetic situation, unable to help himself. And there is no way he can be helped as long as he's in the womb. So when he comes out of the womb, also, we'll see how they come out with a lot of uh, urine or stool and other things. And the child, until it grows, until it matures, is in a very difficult situation where the mother doesn't know why the child is crying. Child may not be hungry, but then there's sometimes the mother feeds the child, which the child may not require. The child is, these are all examples given to show that a child is in a very, birth is a very helpless situation that one goes through. And similarly, at the time of death, one goes through a lot of difficult situations, which I have mentioned in my previous classes, that they, a person who is about, before leaving the body, he sees the Yamadutas, particularly if one has led a very sinful life. He sees the messengers of Yamarajas, they are called the Yamadutas, and they are very, very fearful to look at. And when a person sees that, we are not able to see. It is also said that many times a dog howls in the street because they can sense the presence of Yamaraja. And this is what generally people say. But it is true, the Shastras also say that when a person who is about to leave the body sees the Yamadutas look very, very fearful. So he passes more stool and urine than normal, and he's very, very fearful. And he cannot express because he's not able to speak and he's not able to hear. But he sees these passengers of Yamaraj, and he becomes all the more fearful and passes more stool and more urine than normal. And he's unable to express these to others because he has already lost the capacity to express. He's not able to express. So these are all situations that are given to understand. They are given in the scriptures also, and we can see it in day-to-day life also. That birth, there is a lot of difficulty that one goes through. In death also, a lot of difficulties go through. And then once after they take birth, they go through a long cycle. I mean, today the life cycle is also reduced. But even within the life cycle, like if we say somebody lives for 50 years, the first few years he struggles a lot to grow. The food has got a lot of malnutrition these days. The schools or colleges, they are so contaminated and corrupted that they don't give a proper education. It's all commercialized. And more important than anything, in the Vedic age, the children were sent to Gurukula, at least the main children were sent to Gurukula, and they were taught uh, about Vedic science. With the result, what happened was these all samskaras was being sent to Gurukula for studies, not the uh, schools that we see these days. So the most important thing that was taught in the Gurukula was celibacy for the men, and the women who were at home, the girl child who was at home were taught how to maintain chastity. So in such a society, the people were very good, and we can see today's life. If you ask anybody of your parents or grandparents how, even there are cases where some great grandparents are also living today at the age of 80s or 90s or hundreds. They were all very, very sattvic in nature, at least in the mode of goodness. Even if they were not devotees of the Lord, they were at least living a life of goodness. So they were all averse to committing sinful activities. That is why they could live in that mode of goodness. But in today's world, you see, most of the people are addicted to sinful activities, that is meat eating, gambling, intoxication, illicit sex, etc. With the result, they suffer. The progeny that they get, they also suffer. And this cycle goes on. And the Shastras also explain that after the death, how one transmigrates from species to species also. And this particular case is also mentioned as to how a transmigration to a lower species of life is much more abominable. But still, people forget that pain that they have. We have all gone through the pain during birth. We have all gone through pain during death, and we have gone through a lot of pain during our growth also. And the current generation, that boys or girls or men or women, they go through a lot of pain even at every stage of life, which we can see on a day-to-day basis. There is no happiness, but still everyone thinks that I'm very happy in this material world. And all that is required is a little bit of money, some opulence, a good house, good car, good wife, and all. And life is meant to enjoy. But there is no enjoyment in this life, in this material world. As the Lord Himself says, Abrahma Bhuvana Loka Punarti Arjuna. That means right from the topmost planet, that is Brahma Loka, to the lowest, like Patal Loka, there is no uh, place which is a place that is full of happiness. Even the so-called heavenly planets, the denizens are in heaven, they are afraid of losing their position, and there is always a battle between the demigods and the demons, which we cannot see, but Shastras mention about it. So there is nowhere that one is can get some peace of mind or even a little bit of happiness, which everyone is aspiring for. And why all this? Because uh, one has detached himself from the source of happiness, that is Krishna himself. Krishna is full of happiness, is full of bliss, in fact, which is higher than happiness. and only He can give that happiness. So even in this material world, we see that many times devotees of the Lord, when they leave their bodies, they leave their body in a much pleasant or smiling way. They don't leave their body like that demoniac people leave. Examples are like Haridas Thakura. So many examples are in the Shastras. So the Lord takes the pain away from the devotee of the Lord at the time of even leaving the body, that he does not have to go through this. And the Lord appears himself in front of the person leaving the body, and uh, devotees are able to see the Lord face to face. Examples are given in the Shastra, like Haridas Thakura, Bhishma Deva. They all had a desire to see the Lord, and they saw the Lord personally face to face. So how can they have pain while leaving the body? So from this, we must understand that if we all take up the path of devotional service and become devotees of the Lord, then even this pain, what we might go through, the Lord will take away all this pain. Bhishma was shot with so many arrows, and he was lying in a bed of arrows. But he did not feel this pain because the Lord was right in front of him. And he was he saw the Lord, and he was also giving instructions to Maharaj Yudhishthira, which is mentioned in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So at that stage, when one is in a situation, Bhishma was a great devotee of the Lord. If one is able to give instructions to another, that shows their physical and mental well-being even at the time of leaving the body. And the same case with Haridas Thakura, even though he was beaten in the marketplace so many times, he did not feel the pain. So, because devotees always think of the Lord, their consciousness is always absorbed in the Lord. This is the constitutional position of every living being in this material world. And if one is able to get to this stage, preferably, like Srila Prabhupada said, in one birth, one can get this opportunity. So then one becomes free from this cycle of birth and death. And even in this material world, the Lord personally takes care of such devotees, and the Lord ensures that the devotees are always protected. And that is how the civilization now, it is very important for a society to live in happiness, because the society today is already disturbed. Why? Because, as it is mentioned, Bhagavad Gita itself, that today's population is more of a Varna Sankara. When we say Varna Sankara, it's a population that is degraded out of sense gratification. So when people don't understand the aim of life, goal of life, and they think that sense gratification is the only way to achieve in human form of life, that is why the society is degraded today. And they are always engaged in fights and battles. People are highly disturbed because society is disconnected from the source, that is Lord Krishna himself. That is why systems are given, even the Vedic society, about sanskaras and etc. And these samskaras are nothing but purification of our contaminated existence. We all have contamination in our existence, but the samskaras are meant for purification. So one who has observed these samskaras and passed through all these samskaras, marriage is a samskara, death is a samskara, but one who has gone through these samskaras, they can live a happy life even today. But one must understand the purpose of the samskara to achieve love of Krishna, not just a ordinary ritual which a society thinks. No, it's not that. One should understand the meaning of the samskara. One should attain the essence of the samskara. It is not a commercial activity, but it's a spiritual activity. And the first of what is called the Garbhadana Samskara, which acts as a purifying act at the time of conception itself. It is said that the first birth occurs at the time of Garbhadana Samskara, and the second birth occurs at the time of initiation. And one who has undergone these two samskaras are said to have been twice born. Generally, they say human beings should be at least the higher orders of the society, like Brahmanas, etc., or Vaishnavas, or devotees of the Lord, are supposed to have undergone these two samskaras, that is Garbhadana Samskara. And the second one, important, is at the time of initiation. when they are initiated by a spiritual master, and he gives a second, it is like a second birth for the human being. And one who has undergone this is a twice born. And when the society has such devotees of the Lord, the society always remains peaceful because they are always connected with the Lord. They are not only connected with the Lord, but they try to connect others also with the Lord, so that the others also become God conscious. This is the duty of those in the higher orders of the society, particularly. And it is said that these are stipulations for to have a proper mental state for the parents, for the children, etc. And if this doesn't happen, the Lord is explaining to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita itself, in the first chapter. He says there is a room for the society to have Varna Shankara, which is called undesirable population. Because when women are unchaste and men are not celibate, then they give room to this Varna Shankara population, which will be a degradation in society. That is why it is said that a society should have a good population that comes from the right understanding of the essence of life. Krishna does not say that one should not have sex, but he says that one should be used for not recreation but for procreation. That is for generating the good progeny who become devotees of the Lord. And when there is a good population, there is peace and tranquility in the society, because devotees are generally, by nature, they are very peaceful, they are very mild, their senses are controlled, they are self-satisfied, and they are not greedy or lusty. If you see these symptoms here, lust, greed, envy, anger, pride, and illusion, these are all very, very common in society. But generally, when one gets a good samskara and good birth, they are free from this lust, anger, greed, envy, etc. Srila Prabhupada always, a very nice quote by Srila Prabhupada. He always said there's putra or mutra. In the first sloka, there's mention about mutra. He said that putra or mutra, they both come from the same source, but the son should be born as a putra. Otherwise, he is a mutra. That means the son should be born as a putra. That is the meaning of a son. Just 1 second. Yeah. Putra means one who delivers his parents from a hellish planet called Poo. There is a hellish planet called Poo, and when a son grows, he offers sacrifices or oblations, and by which he can deliver the ancestors also. He can deliver the ancestors from this hellish planet called Poo. That's why his name is called Putra. And if a Putra is not born, then what is born is a Mutra. Srila Prabhupada also sometimes gives quote by Chanakya Pandita, in which there is a very nice quote which says, "What is the value of a son who is neither learned nor religious? Such a person is compared to a blind eye that is only a source of pain." That means one who is not learned. This learned does not mean that one has to be an MBBS or one has to be. 1 second, there is a power problem. Yeah. It does not mean that one has to be an MBBS or one has to be a scholar. No, one has to be learned means one is learned in Vedic wisdom. When one is learned in Vedic wisdom, then he knows the purpose of life and he observes the regulative principles which can give him a peaceful life and a successful life. So here he says that one who is neither learned nor religious, even after learning many times, we see that people today, we might see many priests today, they pretend to be very, very religious, but in the name of religion, they may preach so many things, but when it comes to practice, behind the doors, they may be involved in illicit activities. That is one of the reasons that today It is said that rituals are not effective anymore in this Kali Yuga. So only thing that it can be helpful in this Kali Yuga is chanting the holy name of the Lord. So one who is even understood religion but not able to achieve the goal of religion, it is said that such a son, he says, such a son is compared to a blind eye that is only a source of pain. So, what is the use of an eye which is blind? So, that is how we see the progeny that is today, which are neither learned nor are they religious. And in the current trend, particularly in the Western world and the European countries, we see that today there is a living concept where the man and a woman or a boy or a girl live together without even marriage, and they engage in these illicit activities. So imagine what would be the situation of children who are born out of such illicit connections. That is why it is said such union is very, very dangerous for the society. They may not understand, but the progeny that comes out of such union also are very, very abominable. And we see many of them today, right from the time of birth, they take up sinful activities. Due to time limitation, I'll skip a few things. Yeah. In some of the prayers, the living entity inside the womb, it says, I take shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who appears in his various eternal forms and walks on the surface of the world. I take shelter of him only because he can give me relief from all fear, and from him I have received this condition of life, which is just befitting my impious activity. See, from this prayer, we can understand how we have been performing impious activities life after life. But still, the Lord being very, very merciful, is helping us at all point of time. In today's condition, if we have got a good body to maintain properly a minimal material condition and balance our spiritual life also, it's not because of me. It's because the Lord who has given that facility for us, and that we must understand that in spite of being impious and being put in this material world, the Lord has been so merciful that He has given us a good body with good eyes, ears, and mouth, etc., and good hands, good legs. And then there one more prayer. It says, I, the pure soul, appearing now bound by my activities, am lying in the womb of my mother by the arrangement of Maya. So, because of these activities that we have performed, we are put into the womb of a mother again and again. And why? Because it is the arrangement of Maya. And then he says, I offer my respectful obeisance unto him who is also here with me, but who is unaffected and changeless. He is unlimited, but he is perceived in the repentant heart. To him I offer my respectful obeisances. To a child who is helpless in the womb offers these prayers, the Lord facilitates, because the Lord is seated in everyone's heart, and the Lord facilitates one to take shelter. But what happens when a child comes out of the womb and he's carried away by the so-called affection of this material world, and then everyone gets attracted by the beauty of the child, and in the process they forget the aim of giving proper instructions and guidance to a child. With the result, the child is lost in the society. And in one case, it is mentioned how the soul further says that living entity is put under the influence of material nature and continues a hard struggle for existence on the path of repeated birth and death. So every time we go through the same pain at birth, and every time we go through the same pain at the death, and still, because of our forgetfulness, the Lord has made an arrangement where we are able to forget what has happened in the previous life. Because of that forgetfulness, because if we were to remember the pain that we have gone through in so many life cycles, we will not be able to live even for a single second. That is the pain we have gone through. So when we are not able to realize the pain at this life, in this life itself, if we are given an opportunity to realize the pain we might have gone through in the previous life, altogether, we will not be able to even live for a second peacefully. So that is why the Lord has given this opportunity for us to forget what has happened in the previous life also. But we must understand reality. It is painful in birth and painful in death. There's also mention about how a child goes through a lot of gastric fire. Uh, we have a lot of gas in our digestive system, and a proper food, if we don't take a proper food, there's a lot of gas that is developed in our digestive system. And this child is also affected by this gastric fire. And that is why he is very, very anxious and he doesn't know. And furthermore, when a person is degraded into the lower species of life, that transmigration also is very, very painful. Of course, before entering into a lower species of life, he is given a uh, trial, like a thing that what will be the pain in that species of life. The lower species of life, it is much more abominable than the human species of life, because at least in human species of life, there is an opportunity to understand. But in the lower species, they don't have that capability to understand also. But they go through their pain without understanding that they're going through. At least we can understand that, yes, I'm going through some struggle. Uh, but in the lower species, uh, it doesn't, they don't have that understanding also. Then there's a further mention as to when the child comes out with his face turned downward, and when he comes out, there's a lot of wind that pumps him out and brings out, which is under a lot of pressure, and he goes through that pain also. Uh, and said that how the child comes out with great trouble with head downward, breathless, is breathless and deprived of memory due to severe agony. That means the child is having a lot of agony within the womb of the mother, but unable to express. And how the child comes out, that is mentioned. He falls on the ground, smeared with stool and blood, and plays just like a worm germinated from the stool. So this is in that condition also. The child tries to play. He loses his superior knowledge and cries under the spell of Maya. And the child is incapable of touching his body to get relief from his itching sensation that he feels. He can't sit, he can't stand, and he just keeps on moving here and there. And in this way, the child passes through his childhood, suffering different kinds of distresses, attains boyhood. In boyhood, also he suffers pain or desires to get things he can never achieve. That means a boy has got a lot of desire. Even nowadays, this desire starts even when the child is 2 years or 3 years old, because the society, everyone is bound up by sense gratification. So a boy has got a desire which he knows he can't achieve, but he's too anxious to achieve. And this is due to the ignorance. And he becomes very, very angry and also very, very sorry that he's not able to get it. And as he grows, the one tries to get some false prestige and in the society. And when that doesn't happen, then he becomes angry and he starts developing enmity towards lusty people. And we see today from person to person there is enmity because of lusty desires not being achieved. And for the sake of maintenance of this body, which is a source of constant trouble to him, and which follows him also, this trouble doesn't leave him until he leaves the body. He is bound by the ties of ignorance and fruitive activities, which is what we have discussed in the previous chapter also. In spite of understanding that reality, people are used to performing fruitive activities and sinful activities, which binds a person to the cycle of birth and death. Therefore, it is said that one should seriously discuss these degradations and miseries in the womb and tortures by the wheel of time experienced by the conditioned souls who are averse to Krishna and they want to forget Krishna. So, to take care of the child, is the primary duty of the parent, because if such care is taken, society will be filled with good population, which is essential to get peace and prosperity in the society. Yeah. The next important point is that in whatever species of life one is, he finds a particular type of satisfaction. And this is what is called Maya. For example, it is said in Shastras, how, not Shastra, we can see in day to day life also, a pig uh, eats stool and it derives happiness from that. So even when now the soul is the same, whether it's a human form of life or the pig or a form of life or a dog's form of life. Now the pig, human form of life, we don't want to eat stool. We don't, in fact, we become averse to seeing a stool. But the same spirit soul, when it enters into a pig form of life, the pig enjoys eating that stool. So that is what is called illusion. In that form of life also, they derive satisfaction. And the Lord has given a facility to give, uh, because that is what they desire. Someone who wants to kill others and becomes very eager to eat meat, it is said that they are given the body like a tiger. The tiger is always on the prey and they want to eat those who are live. So they hunt after deer and so many other animals. So they get such bodies by which they derive that pleasure. And if you see, there are examples like bear and all, they said how they sleep for a very long time. So sometimes when we desire that we want to sleep too much, which is very common these days, the Lord facilitates them by giving them the body of a bear also. So, and there are also examples of good examples, like if you see in the Shastras, Parikshit Maharaj, he was in the womb of his mother. He was protected by the Lord when Parikshit Maharaj was attacked by the Brahmastras sent by Ashwatthama. So the Lord gives protection to the devotees of the Lord. And this happened when he was in the womb of mother. If you see Prahlad Maharaj case, Prahlad Maharaj heard Narad Muni's instructions when he was in the womb of the mother. So that is why it is said that when one is pregnant, one should hear Bhagavad Gita as Srimad Bhagavatam as much as possible, so that the child within the womb gets these instructions. Now, which is very, very true, because today people are used to seeing or reading unwanted news and all those things. So when a pregnant woman sees all these things and reads these abominable these things, the child is also affected. So the examples are given about Prahlad Maharaj. He heard instructions from Narad Muni when he was in the womb of his mother Kayadu. Though she was from a demoniac family, she had the opportunity of association with Narad Muni, and Prahlad Maharaj got the benefit out of it. So this is how a child who is in the womb of the mother also can get uh, benefit of association with devotees of the Lord. And when they take instructions from Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, etc., the child becomes a devotee of the Lord and lives a very blissful life. These are some examples in the Shastras that are given. And we can see on a day-to-day basis also, children who are born as devotees of the Lord, they live a very peaceful life. There is a very nice quote in Mahabharata where Yamaraj is, you might have heard, Yamaraj is asking a question to Maharaj Yudhishthira. What is the most wonderful thing in this world? To which Yudhishthira Maharaj is replying. He says that every day, hundreds and millions of living entities go to the kingdom of death. But still, those who are remaining aspire for a permanent situation. So that means those who so many living entities are entering the kingdom of death every day, but still the many who are aspiring to remain or look for a permanent situation in this material world. This material world, there can never be a permanent solution. It is a temporary place. Everything is temporary only. And then he says, what could be more wonderful than this? So in spite of understanding that this material world is temporary, one is going through a lot of pain during birth, death, etc., or everywhere, but still one is looking for a permanent solution. So he says, what could be more wonderful than this? So this is the biggest wonder in this material world. Let me see if there's anything. Yeah. In the seventh canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Narad Muni is giving instructions to King Tishra. He says, one who is content and satisfied and who links his activities with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, residing in everyone's heart, enjoys transcendental happiness without endeavoring for his livelihood. Today, what everyone tries to do is extra endeavor, how much I can do so that how much I can get. But have you seen anybody who has got extra also? Are they living a happy life? No. Then he says, where is such happiness for a materialistic man who is impelled by lust and greed and who therefore wanders in all directions with a desire to accumulate wealth? So the most wealthiest man today in the world, maybe, but still he's not in that happy. He does not get that happiness because he's impelled by lust and greed. Lust means that desires are always there. It is flowing. If you get one desire, but it's fulfilled, there are 10 desires that are standing in queue. So when lust is there, one becomes, when one achieves lust, he becomes greedy. He wants more and more. And when once lust is not achieved, he becomes angry. And then he says, for a person who has suitable shoes on his feet, there is no danger even when he walks on pebbles and thorns. For him, everything is auspicious. That means one who has put on a suitable shoes, for him, he can walk on pebbles and thorns also. Then he says, similarly, for one who is always self satisfied, there is no distress. So, if one is satisfied with whatever one has, he does not have a distress. Indeed, he feels happiness everywhere, he says. So, here in this powerful instruction, Harmony says that one who is satisfied with whatever he has got, he becomes happy always at all circumstances. Though he might not see it on a day to day basis, there are still people living under those conditions and they live a blissful life. He further says, he feels happiness everywhere. A self satisfied person can be happy even with only drinking water. However, one who is driven by senses, especially by the tongue and genitals, they are whose senses are always driven by sense gratification. They always have got to go through the turbulence in this material world. Before I conclude the class, there is one more. Let me see. Yeah, I'll give this quote and conclude the class. It's a conversation. There's a quote in Bhagavatam. It says, out of all kinds of desirable things experienced in the life of a living entity, association with the devotees of the Lord is the greatest. That means if one can get the association of the devotees of the Lord, that is the greatest thing one can achieve, by which one can be led into the path of auspiciousness. And when they are separated from a devotee for a moment, then one cannot enjoy happiness. So one greatest thing that one can attain is association of the devotee. And without a devotee's association, even for a moment of time, one cannot attain happiness. And then it further says, if one is not happy, how can he give happiness to others? It is true. If you don't have happiness, how can you give happiness to others? Is mentioned as to how the happiest people are not those who are worrying about what they are getting. The happiest people are those who lose themselves in giving themselves in some noble pursuit. I mean, the happiest people are those who are sharing what they have, God given gifts to others. That is this transcendental knowledge and transcendental happiness. And with this, I conclude the class for the day because of time constraint. So, for the next 2 or 3 minutes, I can take some any questions or comments anybody might be having.
Krishna Prabhu, Dandar Pranam.
Krishna Prabhu, Dandar Pranam. Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhu, first of all, very wonderful class, Prabhu. Thanks for
Yes,
that.
Prabhu.
And
Prabhu.
like as you were telling, the child remembers so, Krishna when it's in the womb.
Yes,
Uh, it is because of the pain he was suffering, isn't it, Prabhu?
and
It
it
is
is because of,
because of the, as we were saying, the worms are biting him because
yes,
of the
yes,
pain.
yes.
And yes, yes. And why is it that the pain continues when he comes out also, as
Yes,
so much of problems? Then why
yes.
we don't remember then? Then why we remember in the womb? When we come out, why we forget?
Uh, the Lord Himself says in the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, in the 15th sloka, Sarvasya Chaham Pudi Sannivishta. From me comes, Lord says, from me comes remembrance, forgetfulness, and knowledge. Now, when a child comes out of the womb, he sees the outside world as very, very glamorous. And when the parents also get attracted by seeing the beauty of the child, if they are able to utter the name of the Lord, you see in the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, even when he was a child born, everyone used to sing the names of the Lord, and when they used to sing, he used to be happy. And when they used to stop, he used to cry. So, are we able to imbibe that into the child today? Because what we are giving to the child is Maya, a illusory happiness, not the real happiness. So, the child also gets attracted by the illusory happiness, and he forgets the real thing which a parent is supposed to give. So, right from the beginning, that is why it is said that it is not, all these samskaras are not rituals. But if a child is born and he is seeing nice kirtan, and if the child is able to hear the names of the Lord, the child can be blissful even from the birth. But does it happen really? So
Yes,
that's a
Prabhu.
question we have to ask. So that is why association with devotees, and always when one is in sadhu sangha, devotees will always suggest, when somebody is about to leave the body, let's go and do kirtan. When somebody is giving birth, let us go and do kirtan. Because in this age of Kali Yuga, only Harinam Kirtan can help. That is the best thing that we can give to a child. And when a child is able to hear the name of the Lord right from the birth, will he not continue throughout? And if we give it, of course, some basic material education and things might be required. But then, as long as the child is protected with the name of the Lord, that is the best protection we have to give. As if we don't give that, then they get protected from other Maya. Did I answer your question, Prabhu?
Yes, yes, Prabhu. Yes, very rightly said. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Anybody else? Any other comments? So if there are no other questions, can I leave?
Prabhu, I have got one more question.
Yes, Prabhu. Tell me, Prabhu.
And the body, as with the worms, germs, whatever, there are many, it's filled with all sort of things. So
Yes,
how do we understand that when we say that we're not this body, we are soul? There are innumerable souls in one's body, isn't it, Prabhu?
yes.
Innumerable
There are
souls in one body, innumerable
yes,
souls in so innumerable paramatma. So what happens if when we see when the souls leaves the body, does the all other living entities which are inside the body, they also they die, Prabhu? Like, because they are all individual, they have got individual souls. How to understand
yes,
this is
yes.
confusing.
Okay, okay. If I'm not mistaken, you are specifically asking about the worms in the stool. Am I correct?
Worms and other, maybe worms, germs, and whatever, there are many things in the body which are like, they are also got souls, like,
Yeah.
so,
These are the lower species of life, and that is why it is said that transmigration to a lower species of life is the most abominable. Now, such living entities also get an opportunity to progress gradually. That is what is called the evolution of the species of life, where it is mentioned how one species to other one transmigrates, and finally once comes to the human form of life. So it is only in the human form of life one can understand the intricacies of this transmigration to ensure that one does not degrade to the lower species of life. Now, in human form of life, if somebody develops a taste to enjoy stool, the Lord might give a body of a worm also, so that he can take birth as a stool. But then also, once one gets into that species of life, there's a opportunity for him to elevate further and further. But then it's a very long cycle. I mean, some time back we went outside and we saw so many different species of aquatics and all those things. And if you see, they all live a very abominable life. So one has to go through these so many species of life finally to attain the human form of life. And only in this human form of life we can understand that there is something called transmigration. And it is very essential for one to understand that we should not at least degrade to lower species of life in the transmigration process. That is what's mentioned in this sloka also today. Again, coming back is a very long process one has to go through. So all these living entities are also given opportunities to go higher, better and better. But then it's a long process. We have all gone through these. We should not make a mistake of going through this.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. So, what I want to know is, like, when a soul leaves the body, the worms are inside the body.
Yes.
They have also got the soul. So simultaneously they also live, or is it like, it's confusing little? Can you?
When a soul leaves the body, living entities within the body also can leave. Now, there might be, for example, in the stool, so many worms might be there. Now, if they are preserved, when I say nobody will preserve a stool, but if they are kept in a condition where they live, they may live also. But then, if they are put outside of their living condition, then they also have to leave the body. Like, for example, if you take a fish, fish is used to living in a water, but the moment the fish is taken out of the water, the fish leaves the body. So similarly, living entities within the body, if they are put back into a condition where they live, they can live. But if they are outside, depending on the condition where they are in, then that soul also leaves the body.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. Jai Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I have one question.
Krishna.
Somebody
Yes,
asked
Matu.
me, what is sure? How are you sure if you do not had a spiritual master in your previous life?
Okay. How are you sure that you didn't have a spiritual master in your previous life?
Yes.
If you have had a spiritual master in your previous life, in this life you will be connected. If you have had someone in the previous life and if you have not been able to complete your devotional service, you will be connected to the same spiritual master or a representative of the spiritual master at an early stage of life in this life itself. Because the connection is eternal between the between a living being and a spiritual master. So it starts not at a very late stage. Someone who has not completed, for him devotional service starts at a very early age, and it happens to a spiritual master.
Okay.
Is it clear?
Yes, correct.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Can you just repeat that reply, please, once again?
We are talking about
connecting to spiritual master.
Spiritual master. If somebody had a connection with a spiritual master in the previous life, that means he has taken up devotional service, but he has not completed it due to many other whatever circumstances could be. The Lord facilitates such a living being, a living entity, to take birth again in a family where he can resume his devotional service right from the beginning. So if somebody has started the devotional service at the beginning itself, that means it doesn't happen automatically. He has done it in the previous life, and in the current life, he has started it, and he will be connected to the spiritual master through a representative of the spiritual master. Sometimes the spiritual master may appear in this different form. He need not be in the same form in this life itself, but he may come in another form with another name, etc. But he will be connected to the spiritual master through somehow or the other, and he will be connected in this life. But if someone had not had, say, for example, of 30 years or 40 years, we all came at very late 30s and all. we were not into spiritual life. So somehow by the association of devotees, we got into it. We took initiation, first initiation, second initiation, etc. So it's our duty to complete our religious, spiritual path in this life. If not, then spiritual master always gives a quote, don't make the spiritual master come again and again. So someone who has taken up religious life from the very beginning, mostly it is that they have not completed the previous life and they are starting it for current life. It doesn't happen without the connection with the spiritual master. But the spiritual master need not be the same form and name that we had in the previous birth. It will be a representative. It will be a representative of the spiritual master.
Thank you so much. And one more question, Prabhuji. I had, while reading Bhagavatam, I read that the sperm enters through the grain of the person. And later also, I read recently that as soon as the conceive takes place, the sperm, through the sperm, the soul enters immediately.
Yes.
So is it true
what is the question?
that it enters through the grain?
It enters through the semen of the male and enters into the this thing of the woman. The moment the conception takes, the moment the conception takes place,
the question is, I had read and heard also that the sperm will be in the grain.
That grain is actually the semen.
Okay. Oh, I see. Not the grain what we eat.
No. It's not the grain that we see. Actually the reference is that when it says the grain is the semen through which the living entity enters at the time of conception.
Okay, that's what I had. First class, I heard it, and it directly enters through the semen. But I had heard it that it comes to the male person through the grain. So I wanted to clarify myself. Grain is, I thought, kalu, what we eat.
No, not the grain that we eat. Not the grain that we eat.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Anybody else? If not, then I'll leave. Thank you all very much. Grantha Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.